When you know your self-worth and you command respect, people around you will realize they have no alternative but to fall in line. I'm Fiona Harewood, author, speaker, and life coach. There's an anonymous quote which says, "People learn how to treat you based on what you accept from them." When you know your self-worth and you command respect, people around you will realize they have no alternative but to fall in line. Knowing your self-worth and commanding respect are the two principles with which I will be empowering you in this video. In my initial video, I mentioned that during this month of domestic violence awareness, I would be empowering those of you who are single and have not ruled out the possibility of being in a romantic relationship. In a world where domestic violence is prevalent and yet taboo, I challenge those of you who are single to focus on the ways in which you can avoid toxic people and unhealthy relationships. So, how do you avoid toxic people? How will you know if someone is toxic? Initially, identifying toxic people may be challenging because, as I mentioned in the first session, some blissful relationships become toxic because one of the parties was an actor who at some point became tired of acting. The web defines a toxic person as anyone whose behavior adds negativity and upset to your life. When around these people, you always have to defend yourself. You're never fully comfortable and you continually feel bad about yourself. For the most part, we fall in love with our friends. So I hope those characteristics don't apply to any of your friends. If so, wait no longer. He or she is toxic. Steer clear. In principle number 1, love yourself, the first video, I reminded you, among other things, that with God's help, you can love yourself, and that loving yourself is the most important thing you can do for you. Now, let's look at principle number 2. Know your self-worth. In avoiding toxic people and unhealthy relationships, you must know your self-worth or recognize your value. Most likely, you're familiar with the story of the dollar bill or any paper currency. In spite of what you do to it, you crush it, you walk on it, you tear it, it does not lose its value. Similarly, you may have heard or read the story of Joseph in the Bible in Genesis chapter 37 to 50. Joseph's dad loved him while his siblings hated him. He was sold as a slave and ended up in prison, but ultimately he became second in command in Egypt, just as God intended. Joseph never lost his worth. Let me reiterate. If you do not know your value and you depend on others to tell you what you're worth, then you will be in for a rough ride and you may be confused because not everyone is going to appreciate who you are or everything about you. Most of all, you must find your self-worth in what God thinks about you, how God sees you, and not in the roles you currently have or in the situations in which you find yourselves. When God looks at you, he sees potential, beauty, talent. No matter what happens to you, you may have been beaten down, used or abused, like I was. You never lose your self-worth. You never lose your value. Psalm 139:14 reminds us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Remember that. Principle number 3, command respect. It's hardly likely that you're able to look at somebody and realize that person is toxic. So you may have to get acquainted with that person in order to make that call. Therefore, in dealing with toxic people, or as a matter, anyone, you must command respect. I'm going to list 4 ways you can command respect. 1. In commanding respect, you simply teach people how to treat you. Don't be afraid to let people know what is acceptable and what is not. Sometimes you have to let folks know where to get off. As you gain friends, pay close attention to their actions, their speech, how they behave towards you. Is this person always in your space? Does he or she touch you inappropriately? How do they speak to you? What are their texts and chats like? A friend of mine described an instance when her daughter was chatting with her boyfriend on the computer. Her daughter stepped away for a minute, and my friend realized, judging from the frequent notifications, that the boyfriend was still messaging. My friend went to the laptop and looked at what the young man was saying. And yes, parents have the right to do that. She was appalled by what she saw. So she sat at the computer and typed, "Hi, this is Mom, not so-and-so. I do not speak to my daughter like this, neither does her dad, so you check it. Don't you ever speak to her like that again." Had that young lady commanded respect the first time her boyfriend spoke to her inappropriately, it would have been the last time, and her mom wouldn't have had to get involved. Command respect from day one. Don't wait. Number 2, in commanding respect, you articulate your value. Author Mae Bush, in her article, 7 Ways to Command the Respect You Deserve, she mentioned that we are not mind readers. And since people are mostly taken up with themselves and their issues, it is up to you to clue them in about the value you bring, rather than assuming they will figure it out on their own. She said you must let people know what you expect. Bush explained that you can do this by building a case for respect. State what you would like to be respected for. Weave it into a brief outline. Talk it through with a friend, then use it when the need arises. This will help you in both your professional and personal lives. Number 3, the third step in commanding respect. Do not be seen as trying too hard. Bush also pointed out that if you're overly focused on gaining someone's respect, it may backfire, as it is never a good idea to appear desperate. She advised that if you get to that point, it's time to back off, gain perspective, and focus on something else. Give the person room and time. To overcome this, she suggests allowing whatever will be to be, and to respect yourself, which will allow you to gain the respect of others with ease and grace. So, there you have it, 3 of the 10 principles so far in avoiding toxic people and unhealthy relationships. It is more about concentrating on you. Love yourself, know your self-worth, and command respect. In doing so, you will ensure that the treatment you accept from others is the treatment you deserve. In the next video in this series, we will be looking at another 2 of the 10 principles of avoiding toxic people and unhealthy relationships. Principle number 4, be aware that being in a relationship is not a necessity. And principle number 5, selecting the right person. In wrapping up, principles 2 and 3, remember our scriptural theme, Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. Until next time.